The first time I saw her, it wasn't anything cinematic. No perfect lighting, no slow-motion nonsense. Just a bookstore on a Wednesday evening. Half the lights flickering overhead, the air thick with the smell of old paper and burned coffee from the cafe corner. I was standing by the philosophy shelf pretending to read titles I didn't understand when I noticed her. Mid-40s, maybe older, posture too straight for someone who wasn't trying to be noticed. She wore a navy blazer over a plain white shirt, sleeves rolled once, like she'd come from work but didn't plan to stay home just yet. She had that look, confident, self-contained, the kind of presence that doesn't ask for attention but makes you aware of yourself when she walks into the room. She caught me staring, not directly, but in that sideways way where you're trying not to. She didn't smile. She just raised her brows as if to say, "Are you finished?" I should have looked away. I didn't. Instead, I moved to the next shelf, pretending to search for something I'd forgotten. A minute later, I realized she was there too, standing a little closer than coincidence would explain. Her voice broke the quiet. Low, even a little amused. "Are you actually reading those, or just looking at the covers?" I fumbled a laugh, scratching the back of my neck. "Mostly judging the covers. The authors can't complain about it if they're dead." Her mouth tilted, just barely. Not a laugh, not a smile, but something she wasn't planning to give. We talked for a few minutes. Nothing serious. She asked if I read often. I admitted I didn't. She told me she was only here because she couldn't stand the noise at home. Then she fell quiet, and I realized she wasn't offering more. I should have let it end there, but something about her silence made me want to fill it. I asked her what she was looking for. She hesitated, finger trailing the spine of a book she didn't take off the shelf. Then, finally, she said, something that doesn't lie to me. I didn't know what to say to that. So we stood there in the uneven light, her eyes fixed on titles, mine fixed on her hand, delicate but steady, a thin silver band on her right ring finger catching the dull glow. Not a wedding band. Something else. When she finally picked a book and walked toward the counter, I thought it was over. Just a strange, fleeting encounter. But then she paused at the door, book tucked under her arm, and glanced back at me. Long enough to make sure I noticed. Long enough that my chest tightened in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't follow. I didn't even move. Later that night, when I somehow found her number, don't ask me how, it wasn't graceful. I sent a message I shouldn't have. Just a simple line. "You left too fast." I was going to ask which book doesn't lie. The reply came minutes later. Short, sharp, final. "Don't text me again." And that should have been it. But my thumb hovered too long over the screen, heart too loud in my ears. Before I could stop myself, I sent back the words that have been echoing ever since. "Then call me instead." I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I thought she would call, but because I realized her silence, her glance, her unfinished sentences, they were louder than most people's voices. And somehow, I knew I wasn't done hearing them. 2 weeks later, I was helping out at my uncle's repair shop, mostly lifting things too heavy for him, pretending I knew how to handle tools. The kind of day where time crawls, the smell of oil sticks to your clothes, and the air hums with the sound of tired machines. That's when she walked in. Her car had broken down just a few blocks away. She looked different from the bookstore, hair pulled back, no blazer this time, just a faded gray sweater that made her seem softer, but the same presence. Controlled, like she had decided exactly how much of herself the world was allowed to see. My uncle greeted her, then waved me over to take a look at the car. She hesitated when I stepped closer, as if the sight of me unsettled the rhythm she'd planned for the day. "You work here?" she asked. Not accusing, not surprised, just weighing something. "Mostly moving things around," I admitted. "But I know enough to check what's wrong." For a second, I thought she might leave. Instead, she handed me the keys, her fingers brushing mine by accident. A simple touch, but it felt like my chest forgot how to expand for a beat. I bent over the engine, pretending to be focused while every nerve in me registered her standing a few feet away. She crossed her arms, shifted her weight, let out a long breath she probably didn't know I could hear. Not the sigh of impatience, something heavier. When I told her it wasn't serious, that it just needed tightening and a quick fix, she finally laughed. Not loud, not bright, just a small, uneven sound that escaped before she could stop it. And God, it was the first unguarded thing I'd seen from her. "You laugh like you're not used to it," I said before thinking. Her eyes lifted to mine, sharp for half a second, then softer. "You notice too much." I wanted to answer, but the silence stretched between us, filled with the hum of the shop fan and the clink of my uncle's tools in the back. I wiped my hands on a rag, stealing a glance at her. How tired she looked around the edges, the faint crease between her brows, the way she kept adjusting the strap of her bag like she needed something to hold on to. When I handed her the keys back, her hand lingered a heartbeat too long in mine. Not on purpose. More like she forgot to let go. That was all. Just a second, a fraction of hesitation. But it was enough. Enough to feel like something had shifted, quietly, invisibly, between us. As she left, she said only, "Thank you." 2 words, nothing more. Yet I carried them with me the rest of the day, heavier than any engine I'd lifted. The shop had stayed open late, my uncle gone home early, leaving me to close. Rain started tapping the roof in uneven rhythms, heavy enough to make the world outside blur. That's when her car pulled up again. She came in not for repairs, but because, in her words, it was closer than waiting out the storm in the parking lot. She carried no umbrella, drops clinging to her sweater, hair darker where it had caught the rain. I offered her the old chair by the counter. She sat, arms wrapped around herself, tapping a finger against her elbow like she didn't want to admit how cold she was. "You'll catch something sitting like that," I said. Her answer was quick. "I've caught worse." I didn't ask what she meant. I just set a mug of lukewarm coffee in front of her, the only thing the shop had to offer. She didn't thank me out loud, just wrapped her hands around it like she'd been waiting for something warm. For a while, the silence was comfortable. She looked around, eyes trailing over the faded posters on the walls, the old clock above the door, the half-finished paperwork on the counter. I watched her more than I should have, memorizing how the rain lights softened her, how different she seemed without her usual armor. Then she said, almost to herself, "You're too young to be here this late." I smiled. "You say that like it's a crime." Her gaze flicked up, steady but unreadable. It might be. There was something in the way she said it that felt heavier than a joke. Like she was reminding herself, not me. The words were on the tip of my tongue. To ask why she kept showing up in places I was, why she hadn't blocked my number after that first text, why her silences pulled me in deeper than most people's confessions. But I stopped myself. Instead, I asked the safer thing. "You ever feel like you're waiting for something to happen, but you don't know what?" Her fingers tightened around the mug. She didn't look at me. Every day. The room felt smaller then, the storm pressing against the windows, her voice still hanging between us. She shifted, as if she might say more, but her phone buzzed on the counter, sharp, intrusive. The name lit on the screen. Daniel. She silenced it instantly, turning the phone face down, but the moment had already cracked. I wanted to ask who he was. I wanted to ask why her shoulders had gone stiff. Instead, I just said, "Coffee's terrible, huh?" She laughed, quiet, unwilling. And for a second, she reached across the counter, fingertips brushing the rim of my mug as though she might take it, or maybe as though she wanted to touch something else entirely. But she stopped herself, pulled her hand back. And that was where it ended. Her silence heavier than the storm outside, my restraint louder than any confession I could have made. She came by again, this time not with an excuse. Not for books, not for a broken car, not for shelter from a storm. Just here, in the shop after closing, standing by the counter like she wasn't sure if she should have walked in at all. I locked the door behind her, not because I wanted to, but because it felt wrong to leave it open when the air was already too full. We didn't talk much. I fiddled with tools I didn't need to touch. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, but her eyes never left me. Not directly. More like circling, studying. Like she was searching for a map out of someplace she never planned to enter. At some point, I asked, "Why do you keep coming here?" Her jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she said, voice low, "Because it's quiet. Quieter than my house. Quieter than my head." The words hung there, bare, almost careless in how much they revealed. I set the wrench down, turned toward her. And me? Am I quiet enough? Her eyes met mine, steady but fragile. You're the opposite. That's the problem. Neither of us moved. The clock ticked too loudly, and the hum of the fridge in the back suddenly felt like a witness. Finally, she spoke again, softer now. What are we doing? The question hit harder than it should have. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I didn't. I swallowed. We're talking. She shook her head, almost a laugh, but not. No, talking is safe. This isn't. Her hand brushed her hair back, trembling slightly, though her face stayed composed. I noticed the way her breathing caught, the way her shoulders rose and didn't fall right away. I wanted to tell her I didn't know either, that I wasn't planning this, that I wasn't looking for her, that I couldn't explain why my chest felt both heavier and lighter when she was around. But the words jammed in my throat. So I said nothing, and neither did she. We just stood there, silence pressing in tighter, her eyes locked on mine like she was waiting for me to make sense of it, like she was daring me to. I finally opened my mouth, then closed it, because I knew whatever I said, it wouldn't be enough. Her lips parted as if she might fill the gap, but instead she just exhaled, slow and unsteady. And then, almost too quiet to hear, she gave me the line that cracked something in me wide open. I can't decide if being here with you makes me feel alive or ashamed. After that night, she didn't come around for a while. A week, maybe more. Long enough for me to wonder if I'd said too little or too much. Then one evening, just as I was closing the shutters, her car rolled up again. No rain this time, no excuses. She didn't look at me when she stepped inside, just set her phone on the counter and asked, "Do you ever keep things you shouldn't?" I wasn't sure what she meant. Like what? Instead of answering, she slid the phone across the counter. The screen lit up with a photo, grainy, old, but clear enough. A man, maybe mid-30s, smiling in that careless way people smile when they think the moment will last forever. This was Daniel, she said. The same name I'd seen flash on her phone weeks earlier. I nodded, waiting. He died. For years ago. Her voice was even. Too even. Car accident. Drunk driver. I didn't know what to say. Her eyes stayed fixed on the photo, but her hand had curled into a fist against the counter. I thought I was finished breaking over it. She went on, quieter. Then you show up. And sometimes, just for a second, I forget he's gone. That's the part that scares me. The room felt different after that. Like the air had thickened, like even the hum of the fluorescent light overhead was listening. I studied the photo again, then her face. Not the same man. I didn't look like him. But maybe it wasn't about resemblance. Maybe it was about timing, about her ribs making space again for something she didn't want to carry. I'm not him, I said carefully. I know. Her eyes flicked up to mine then, sharp, wet around the edges but refusing to break. And that's why I shouldn't keep letting this happen. She reached for the phone, but I caught it first, gently, just laying my hand over it before she could. The contact was brief, unplanned, but enough to send something rushing through me that I couldn't name. She froze at the touch, not because it was too much, but because it was the first time either of us hadn't pulled away. For a second, neither of us breathed. Then she whispered, almost as if to herself, "You don't even know what you've walked into." I wanted to answer, to say something reassuring, something that would make it easier for her. But the truth was, she was right. I didn't know. Not really. Still, I couldn't stop myself from asking, voice low. And if I want to know? Her hand slipped out from under mine, slow, deliberate. She picked up the phone, turned the screen dark, and said nothing. But her silence carried more weight than any confession. It felt like a door had just opened, and maybe closed, in the same moment. She came by late, long after the shop should have been closed. No reason, no pretense. Just stood at the door until I let her in. The night was still, cooler than the weeks before, the kind of air that makes silence feel sharper. Neither of us said much. She sat on the worn chair by the counter. I leaned against the workbench, arms crossed, trying not to stare but failing. Her phone buzzed once in her bag. She didn't even look at it. Finally, she spoke, voice low, almost weary. I keep telling myself this is wrong, that I'm old enough to know better. I shifted, unsure if I should step closer or stay where I was. And yet you're here. Her laugh was small, but real this time. And yet I'm here. For a long moment, we just let that sit. The honesty of it. The impossibility. She rubbed her temple with 2 fingers, like she was trying to press the right words out. I don't want to be rescued. I don't want to be someone's replacement. Or mistake. You're not. The words came faster than I meant. Too certain, maybe. But I meant them. She lifted her eyes to mine, searching. Then what are we? The question I'd been circling for weeks. What are we? What am I to her? What is she to me? I didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, I walked closer, slow enough that she could have stopped me if she wanted. She didn't. I sat on the edge of the counter near her, close enough that our knees almost touched. She didn't move back. We stayed like that, suspended in the kind of silence that doesn't need breaking. Finally, she exhaled, softer than before. This is dangerous. Yeah, I said. Her lips curved, tired but genuine. And you're too young to know how dangerous. Maybe, I admitted. But I know I don't want it to end here. Something shifted in her then, her shoulders loosening, her gaze softening, just a fraction, like she'd stopped fighting herself for one breath. She leaned forward, not much, just enough that her forehead rested against mine. No kiss, no declaration, just skin to skin, warmth to warmth. I closed my eyes, letting the closeness settle, letting the quiet say what neither of us dared to. Her hand found mine, fingers slipping in with a hesitation that lasted only a second before holding firm. And that was it. No fireworks, no grand confession. Just 2 people in a quiet room, finally allowing themselves to collapse into the truth they'd been circling all along. When she spoke again, it was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of everything unspoken. We don't have to name it. Just don't let go. And I didn't. It wasn't the kind of story people write songs about, or the kind that fits neatly into advice columns. There were no fireworks, no grand gestures, no declarations under a perfect sky. What we had was quieter than that, and maybe more fragile. But it was real. I can still see the way she looked at me that last night in the shop, forehead resting against mine, as if the weight of her whole past was pressing against the possibility of something new. She didn't give me promises, and I didn't ask for them. We only gave each other presents, our own stubborn, complicated presents. And that changed me. Before her, I thought love had to be loud. I thought it had to prove itself with words and certainty. With her, I learned it could exist in a glance, in silence, in a hesitation neither of us dared to break. She once told me she was afraid of being a mistake, but being with her never felt like one. If anything, it made me question every other connection I'd treated lightly, every moment I'd let slip because I was waiting for something easier, clearer. She showed me that love isn't about clarity, it's about courage. And her? She let me see the cracks in her confidence, the parts of her that weren't polished or untouchable. She'd built walls so high around herself that even laughter sounded foreign to her at first. But slowly, I saw her loosen, laugh without covering it, let her hands linger instead of pulling away. If I gave her anything, maybe it was just a reminder that she could still be seen, even when she didn't want to be. We didn't tie it up neatly. We didn't announce it to the world. Some days we're still just figuring it out, what it means, what it costs, what we're willing to carry for each other. And maybe that's what makes it worth remembering. Because the truth is, the things that change us most aren't the loud, sweeping stories. They're the quiet ones. The ones whispered in repair shops at midnight, or left hanging in half-finished sentences. The ones where someone looks at you and doesn't see who you remind them of, or who they used to be with, or who you could become, just you, as you are. That's what she gave me. And if you've been listening, maybe that's what you needed to hear too. That love doesn't always have to make sense. It just has to make you stop, breathe, and decide you don't want to let go. So tell me, have you ever had a moment like that? A moment that wasn't flashy, wasn't obvious, but changed the way you see love forever?